Hey guys, it has been a very interesting week for Sonos, and for those of you who have been aware, there is actually an announced price hike for most of Sonos products. If you take a look at the list here, you'll notice that some of the products have seen a hike as high as $50 for the Sonos Sub, for the Sonos Arc, as well as the Sonos 5s. Some of them are more modest increase of $10, but if you notice, some of the products like the Pod has not increased in price. So why is the Sonos Beam missing from this list? Are they going to be removing the Sonos Beam from production? No more Sonos Beam for us? Let's find out. Okay, so without trying to keep you in suspense, like my videos, I'll give you a summary right up front. They are not removing the Sonos Beam. They are actually going to be releasing the Sonos Beam Gen 2. So for those of you who are interested, a very quick summary of what the changes are from the Beam Gen 1 to the Beam Gen 2. I'm going to run through this very quickly, so you don't have time, you can just listen to this summary and off you go. Right? So it's going to have Atmos, big thing. It's going to have DTS and multi-channel LPCM support. Another big thing is going to have 3D audio in a form of 3D music like Atmos music with support for Amazon Ultra HD music. No news of the Apple Music yet, and it's going to support an eARC port. It's going to have a bump up in the CPU processing power, and it will have NFC for easy pairing. Physically, the size has not changed, but the grille, instead of a fabric grille, is going to be of a polycarbonate grille. So it's going to look a lot more like your Sonos Arc in terms of finishing than how the Beam was like with the fabric covering. It's going to age a little bit better. It's probably going to wear a little bit better as well with the polycarbonate finishing. And finally, if you flip the Beam to the rear, you'll notice that for the white Sonos Beam, the cables are now going to be color-coded. So it's going to have white cables, and the port area, instead of black on the whole white unit, is now also going to be white in color. Okay, and that is the summary. So for those of you who are interested to stay on a little bit more, do allow me the time. I will elaborate on each of these points. So the Sonos Beam Gen 1, and I have to refer to it as the Gen 1 now, given that the Gen 2 has been launched and announced. It was launched in 2018. So that's about 3 years ago, July of 2018. And it was the first soundbar from Sonos that will accept HDMI ARC connection. So with the HDMI ARC connection, it simplifies the whole connection, and a lot of TVs then already have the ARC port, which means to say you can actually even control the volume through the TV remote using the HDMI ARC port. So technically you only need a power cable and the HDMI ARC cable. Then a few years later, but actually back in 2020, they launched the Sonos Arc. The Sonos Arc needed to support Dolby Atmos, and Dolby Atmos for lossless format required a full bandwidth of a HDMI eARC port. So the question that has been around since the Sonos Arc was launched is, hey, should I be getting the Sonos Arc or should I be getting the Sonos Beam for, like less than half the price? And the answer has always been, if your TV supports Atmos and has eARC, then by all means get the Sonos Arc. But if your TV doesn't support Atmos and it doesn't have eARC, then it makes a little bit more sense to get the Sonos Beam. But of course, even on a non-Atmos TV, even on a non-eARC TV, the Sonos Arc is going to sound a little bit more expensive and a little bit wider, bigger than the Sonos Beam. But with the introduction of the Sonos Beam Gen 2, then the two speakers, the two soundbars are going to be brought a lot closer, because the Beam Gen 2 now has eARC, is able to support Dolby Atmos, and not only that, it will be able to support DTS. Now, the good news is that DTS support, multi-channel LPCM support will be rolled out to the Sonos Arc as well. in due time. And in order to allow the Beam to process Dolby Atmos, it required an upgrade in the processor. So the processor is 40% faster, and it has also incorporated an NFC chip, which means to say pairing to your system, to your whole network, is now a lot easier. Just with the Sonos S2 app, bring it close to the speaker, bring it close to the Sonos Beam Gen 2, and it should be able to pair quite easily, like, a recent Sonos 5. Another very important sound format that the Sonos Beam Gen 2 is going to be supporting is DTS and multi-channel LPCM. For most users, the lack of multi-channel LPCM probably won't irritate you as much, but if you have a TV that doesn't quite support LPCM properly, then this is basically a godsend. And I'm looking at the LG CX TV, which have had problems with multi-channel LPCM for a while. Why? Because there's no DTS support. So if you're going to be playing your Blu-ray or your DVD movies, then you're going to have some difficulties. The sound is not going to come out as accurate, or worst come to worst, you might even fall back to a stereo sound channel, which means it doesn't make use of your sub, no low frequency effects channel, and no center channel, no height channel. All the nonsense that comes with incompatibility of Sonos products with DTS. But as of the launch of the Sonos Beam Gen 2, this has changed. DTS is going to be supported, multi-channel LPCM is going to be supported, and it's going to bring forward to the Sonos Arc as well. So on the software side of things, there will be another change, which is the support for Dolby Atmos music. So this is what they call the spatial music, the 3D music, 3D audio, and it is only going to support Amazon Ultra HD music, unfortunately. And that is not even available in Singapore, where I live right now. So it's a bit of a bummer. I think Sonos is going to be forced one day to actually adopt the Apple Music's Atmos soundtracks. It's just that today, the S2 app itself, it doesn't pull that format. For those of you who are interested, I've done a video on the Apple Music support on Sonos before. You could check it out if I could link it up here so you can take a look at it. But otherwise, no go for those of you who are on Apple Music and trying to stream Dolby Atmos soundtrack to the Beam. And the last point that I'm going to touch on that's got to do with the software/hardware side is the eARC port. So the eARC port, moving forward, most of the TVs are going to be launched from 2021, 2022 onwards. At least the mid-tier and above, they are going to have support for eARC port. So much like how ARC port wasn't very popular 5 years ago, today you can't find a TV without an ARC port. So similarly, moving forward from 2021 onwards, you'll see that most of the TVs, and in a couple of years' time, almost all the TVs that will be released will have support for an eARC port. So an eARC port supports a full bandwidth of 18 Gbps, which will carry a full lossless Dolby Atmos soundtrack over the channel. So now moving into the hardware aspect, as I've explained to you, I think the grille changing from the fabric to the polycarbonate covering will be actually a very nice move. At least it doesn't show up the yellowing in the fabric, and more importantly, when you look at the grille, it is actually going to be more consistent, and you won't wear and tear as much as the fabric. The fabric one, you run a sharp object over it, it might tear. It's not going to stand up to moving as well as the Sonos Arc. But now with the Sonos Beam Gen 2, it's going to have the same polycarbonate covering the grille, the mesh, which is acoustically transparent. It will help quite a bit. Now, within the speaker itself, all right, the hardware aspect of it still has the 5 amps and the 5 speakers. It's just that the processing actually tries to simulate a vertical soundstage as well as a wider soundstage via computational audio, processing via the CPU. And it does it in a phase array arrangement. So basically, how phase array works is that it might tend to try to cancel out some sounds and some frequencies to portray a wider soundstage or a vertically higher soundstage. And that is how this Sonos Beam Gen 2 is going to portray an Atmos sound feel to you as the listener. How convincing it's going to be, I don't know. Let's wait for the product launch. I will get my hands on a unit and I will test it and I will report back. Other than that, The color coding of the cables is a small change. The rear port area, whether it's black for the black unit or white for the white unit, is a small change. Okay, so now all the differences and the changes covered. What is the one thing that I think will complete this setup? Now, I'm already thinking about how you can improve this product, right? Before it's launched, before it's made available to you and me. And it is the same request as what I have had for the Sonos Arc. Now, the Sonos Arc has upward firing speaker. This beam does not have upward firing speaker. It uses a phase array arrangement to try to simulate the response or what you hear in terms of a height channel. If you could allow the Sonos ecosystem to set up two other discrete Sonos speaker, maybe it's the Sonos 1, maybe it's the Sonos 5, as the ceiling speaker, or even a pair of M driving a pair of ceiling speakers, right? If you could allocate those as the height channel, then you could have real Atmos sounds, real, voice of God sound coming from above you, rather than having it bounce off from the speaker or simulated by the Sonos Beam. Now, because the Beam Gen 2 is now going to be capable of processing Dolby Atmos signals, it will be able to distinct and will be able to send the height signal to another pair of speakers. So I think Sonos, it is a feature that will help you drive more sales for the Sonos 1, for the Sonos 5s, or even the Sonos M. Okay, so all in all, a very, very exciting product update of a very, very popular soundbar from the Sonos lineup. So I will get my hands on the Sonos Beam Gen 2, and with that, get ready for some hands-on review, get ready for some serious testing. For those of you who are familiar with my channel, I go in depth, I really strip things apart, and I will do frequency sweeps, I will measure the response, I will measure the power consumption, I will do a lot of things with any new Sonos products that are being launched. I will also be doing comparison videos between the Gen 1 and the Gen 2 for the Sonos Beam, and maybe between the Sonos Beam Gen 2 and the Sonos Arc, and I will cover all the differences, and I will also be doing binaural recording of the Sonos Beam Gen 1 versus the Sonos Beam Gen 2 versus the Sonos Arc, so that you can hear for yourself what I'm hearing. Because binaural recording means that you are going to be hearing what I'm hearing with my two ears. The two mics are being stuck into my ears so they can hear that. So for those of you who have not been subscribed to my channel and watching my channel, please show your support. Click the subscribe button, hit the like button for this video, and make sure you sound off the notification bell so that when that video drops, you will be notified. And I will see you very, very soon when the product is in my hands.